Good morning, good morning. It is Saturday morning, Memorial Day weekend. Man, oh man, oh man. But you know what? I just want to say this. Look, did anybody go down to the Chesapeake Bay Blues Festival last Sunday? Wow, you talk about a festival that one day. Because it rained on them on Saturday. But anyway, I got a chance to go down there as usual, and I got my blues on. And I feel pretty good. I like to thank the artists that were down there. Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Kim Moe, Shamika Copeland. Oh my God. Besides the mud down there, which I didn't mind. And I met a lot of great people. A lot of great people down there that love the blues, just like yours truly. Man, when you get a chance, you know, next year, you guys, when the Chesapeake Bay Blues Festival come around, y'all make sure you go. Because I'm telling you, if you love the blues, you'll love that festival. The only thing that I'm mad about is they ran out of 2X t-shirts. I can't wear no medium or small. So I wasn't able to get a t-shirt, but I will be back to get one next year. Anyway, welcome to the Hill of Blues Show with your host, Ron Jasckson. I'm here, it's 7 o'clock. And I try to be here every Saturday morning because I know there's some blues lovers that listen. We always start out with John Lee Hooker, Carlos Santana, the Healer. And today what I'm going to do is play a short blues documentary on how the blues got started. And by the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to our Stone Blue. You know we got to do that. And I don't even want to say after that because that means I got to get off. But anyway, here we go, y'all. Y'all hold on. It's Saturday morning, Memorial Day weekend. I know you got your ribs and all that tenderized and never get ready to go on the grill. And I'm going to give you something to work with. So here we go, y'all. Here we go.
I was down. You healed me. Lord, yes it did. Look now. A woman left me. The blues healed me. My woman left me early one morning.
On Mondays, we keep it moving with the Kim Show from 11 to 1 p.m. Then it's time for a change with Sherry and Mignon, 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then in the end we win with Curtis, 8:15 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. On Tuesdays, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Start your afternoon with the Wealth Zone with Raymond Starks. Then it's Cooking with Flavors with Chef Flavors, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And treat yourself right with My Spa Bath and Body, hosted by Margaret Harris, 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Up next is Slick Daddy Rick, Heartbeat Congo Hour, rocking from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Then on Wednesdays, you can't miss Impact the World with Cheryl Woods, 12 noon to 2 p.m. And then from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., we got Slick Talk with Oscar D. It's the Kid. Then from 8 to 9 p.m., we crank it up with Live Set Wednesdays, hosted by Reg Gaskins. After that, 9:15 to 10:15 p.m., the BGKH Show with. Check out our Thursday lineup, starting with You, Math, and Me, hosted by George Randall, from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Then from 7 to 9 p.m., the 640 Evening Show with DJ 640. And on Friday, we start out with Peace in the Morning Show with Darius A. Stan, co-host Delicate Daryl Barnes, and Queen of Sudabed, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. From 10:30 to 11:30, the Hall Street Journal with Robert Hall and co-host Clarence Sanders. And after that, you know we gotta check in with Chanel, 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Up next, from 3 to 4:30 p.m., Daryl Allen Hairston II Crime Victims Foundation Show with your host, Daryl Hairston. Then, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. is The Rush Hour with DJ Drew and Janique. And from 9:15 to 11:15 p.m., you can't miss Different Mind Show with Bam 640 and DJ Andre Michael, co-host Hillary Banks. Then start out your Saturday mornings with the Hiller Blues Show, hosted by After that, 9:30 to 10:30 a.m., the Hour of Power with Reverend Winters Rogers. Then, from 11 a.m. to 12 noon, it's time for prayer, praise, and deliverance with Elder Thurman Gorman Jr. Four Sisters Live Talk, 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. Saturday, listen to Turning Dreams into Reality Talk Show with Tashika L. Green, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. After that, from 3 to 4 p.m., we walk in newness 24/7 with Missionary Antoinette. And don't miss, from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., news, ULM News and Analysis, information, sports, Black history, with your host, News Carter Willis, 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Then, from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., it's time for DJ Rick, the CEO of Step Your Game Up, the Youth Project, co-hosted by DJ Main and DJ Low Hefe. And then, at 7:45 to 8:45 p.m., it's time for the Fantastic Live Show with MC Fran. And starting out on Sundays, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., I am Dr. Sharon Show with Dr. Sharon. And every first Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m., it's the Riri Williams Show, Fashion and Style Hour. And every third Sunday, check out the Tea Talk Show with Dr. Akita Pearson, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Then it's time for Real Talk 101, 6 to 8 p.m. And from 8:15 to 9:15 p.m., we're tuned into the Gospel Live TV show with Glory Mello. Stay tuned to Vox Wave, where you can find all your favorite shows.
The world's #1 streaming music station, VoxWave.com.
It's such simple music, it seems timeless.
Well, I woke up this morning feeling wrong.
But the blues does have a history, and it keeps changing. For the 1920s New York record industry, the blues was a parade of powerful women on stage, singing about sex, sadness, and feeling blue.
I woke up this morning with an awful aching head.
This is the story of how a folk art met up with new media and became the bedrock of American music.
Woke up this morning, I looked round for my shoes.
From the Deep South came the blues that gave birth to rock and roll.
Walking blues.
In the 1960s, white kids got the blues.
I am the little red rooster, too lazy to crow for day.
The blues entered the 20th century as the ultimate brand of authenticity. Music that could be celebrated by prisoners and presidents.
This is music with humble beginnings.
Oh, good morning, found my baby gone.
It's a bent note here. It's something that says, I've been somewhere and you've been there too, but we don't necessarily want to talk about it. And blues is kind of like that. It's kind of a mystery, and long may it stay a mystery, you know.
The blues may have had its roots in Africa, but the music was born in the USA.
I'm going down in Louisiana.
Why is it that there is no blues in Cuba, no blues in Puerto Rico, no blues in St. Kitts and Nevis? Why is that not happening?
I'm going down in New Orleans. Get me a...
In 1865, the American Civil War freed the slaves. By around 1900, the blues had emerged in the Deep South. Their musical roots may have been ripped from the African soil, but to talk to each other, Black Americans needed to forge a new language.
In the United States, the music was broken up. The people were broken up. But they were not parts of the same tribe. So there was nothing to express it except the blues.
Well, you know, I just found out my trouble just begun.
From the start, the blues spoke in the first person, talking about moving on and leaving your troubles behind.
I'm going down in New Orleans.
The blues comes actually as release from the kind of strict localism, you call it, you know, being confined. And it's, you know, you suddenly get songs about people traveling and people going to see this and people what they met on the road.
Coming through the territory in Kansas City, and Kansas City, St. Louis, and St. Louis, Chicago. I'm on my way, but it's doing well.
Appropriately, a railroad station was the setting for a crucial early encounter with the blues. Here, a college-educated black man named W.C. Handy, the leader of a colored band, met a lean, loose-jointed Negro vagrant.
We're in Tutwiler, Mississippi, and this place is famous in blues lore because sometime around 1903, this is the spot where W.C. Handy recalled that he had first heard the blues. He was sitting here and heard a musician playing a guitar by pulling a knife across the strings, and Handy recalled it was the weirdest sound he had ever heard.
The blues was being improvised all over the South for pleasure and profit.
Okay.
Later, Handy heard in Cleveland, Mississippi, not too far away from here, African-American string band playing the blues, and that was also a really pivotal moment because that's when he realized, he saw people throwing coins at their feet and realized that he could make money off of it.
The sort of music Handy heard is played today by the Ebony Hillbillies.
Early blues music was dance music designed for adults to get them to come to some place and drink and have a good time. And so it's mating music, essentially. It's about men and women. The driving instrumental part of the blues certainly comes from early fiddle music, slave fiddle players, banjo players. But the blues was purposely formed as a dance music so other musicians would make money, you know, to come to dance halls.
At the turn of the century, the blues was being played by the poorest people on whatever came to hand.
You see the old slavery pictures, guys working on a railroad track. They get to hitting the hammer the same way, you know. Then they make up a song. Hop, poop, hop, poop, hop, poop. I've heard guys say they put a piece of wire inside of a house and play. Take tambourine, they play. They take a wash tub. They take a wash bowl, take spoons, you know. Anything that you put together like that with a feeling, somebody will listen.
Handy translated the weird sounds that he heard into a publishing empire. In W.C. Handy Park in Memphis, a statue commemorates the writer, composer, and publisher who gave himself the title Father of the Blues. Around 1914, in the era before records and radio, Handy's Memphis Blues and St. Louis Blues became sheet music hits.
what's really significant about Handy hearing this music is that within a decade, he was writing these and making good money off of this music. So we often talk about blues as a folk music, but almost from its inception, it was also commercialized.
Soon this new musical form was crisscrossing the southern states of America. Today, we think of minstrel shows as crude caricatures of black music. But at the beginning of the 20th century, dozens of African-American minstrels were putting on tent shows across the South.
Woke up this morning, same thing on my mind. Woke up this morning, same thing on my mind.
Minstrel shows and their successors, the medicine shows, which toured the South right through the first half of the 20th century, were, in a sense, academies for musicians who wanted to become professional.
The tent shows traveled through the countryside, where audiences heard versions of the latest tunes from the big city.
They were almost like kind of traveling salesmen for songs. They would pick up stuff from all over the place, whether from the vernacular, from songs that were being sung in plantations, or by professional troupes, by musical comedy troupes that was available on sheet music. And they mixed it all together.
The men and women writing and performing the blues were ambitious. They used the latest media to bring their music to the public. It was New York, the capital of the new recording industry, that made the blues a driving force in popular music. Initially, the record business ignored black musicians.
You have to remember that in this period, in the teens and 20s, the money in songs was in publishing. It was not in recording. And Perry Bradford, who was a black songwriter, he was a contemporary and a competitor of W.C. Handy's, was writing these songs, and he wanted to get hits.
In 1920, Perry Bradford scored a big hit with Crazy Blues, sung by Mamie Smith. It's said to have sold 1 million copies. No one knows for sure, but what is certain is that it launched the blues as pop music. In the early 1920s, record companies began to release race records, music by black performers for black audiences. The first successful blues singers were women.
The threat to whites was not black women, it was black men. So the black men on the stage were forced to black up. Black women were not. They could perform with their own skin. But a black man had to be a clown. He had to put on funny clothes and do funny dances.
There was always interaction, although not always favorable, between American white males and black women. They were allowed to do or be vocal or say certain things that the black males wouldn't be able to say or do.
They were more showbiz in their own way, even though they were as gut blues as anybody else, but they had to dress it up, and there's nothing like a dressed up lady to turn the interest, I think. Luckily, they were some of the most phenomenally great singers. Even through those old records, you can tell the timbre of their voice and their delivery was amazing, because this was out pre-microphone, you know, so these girls really had to be able to project.
In segregated 1920s America, The blues queens performed on a black theater circuit, and they lived their lives in a black underworld.
When the artists used to perform and travel around, they would have to stay in people's houses, which turned out to be things that we call the buffet flats, in which you could get entertainment, food, you could get a bed, and you could get a bed with someone else in it if you wanted, you know.
Woke up this morning when chickens were crowing for day.
The blues may have been a view from the bottom of society, but in 1923, the blues produced its first superstar, Bessie Smith. A dark brown woman from Chattanooga, Tennessee, she was a veteran of 10 years of touring with minstrel shows.
Some people call me a hobo, some call me a bum. Nobody knows my name, nobody knows what I've done.
Bessie Smith was talking about the woes of life with women, and that's probably why she was so popular. You know, she talked about domestic violence, which is what we call now. She talked about even fighting back.
Come on now, you gonna move? Don't you hit me? What's this? Now get out! Now wait a minute, Jeff. Grab the woman.
Emerging from a dirt-poor background, Bessie Smith at her peak commanded $2,000 a week for her live performances.
Bessie Smith lives the blues, and especially those sexual songs, because she had a reputation and she lived up to it. One of my favorites is Sugar in My Bowl, you know. I need a little sugar in my bowl. I need a little hot dog on my roll. I could stand some loving for so bad. I feel so funny. I feel so sad. You know, it's just something to entice. You know, you're going to listen to things that entice you. You're going to eat food that entices you. You know, why not have a little spiciness in the music?
The blues was black music making a lot of money for its superstars, but the structure of the music came out of work songs and churches.
If it wasn't for cabaret, where would I be?
The call and response between the preacher and the congregation came ultimately from Africa. In tribal music, one singer sang a line and the other sang it back.
On a hill called Calvary.
In the blues, the second voice became an instrumental voice.
Y'all praying with me?
Y'all praying with me?
The chord and response, when you sing the blues, you say a word, you say a lyric or whatever, and then you play behind that. You know, for instance, I said, "Thank you, sir." Then I dun dun dun. You know, "Thank you, sir." Dun dun dun. You know.
At Calvary, we hear the words.
The call and response, you can go back to early Africa, and it's usually based on the form of people returning from a hunt, saying, you know, I caught this, blah blah blah, and the people say, yeah, you sure you caught that? Yeah, you know, it's acknowledgement and confirmation. You know, and did you hear that? Yes, I heard that. What did I say? This is what you said. What does it mean? It means this.
Was on his shoulder on a hill called Calvary.
Religion spoke of the life to come, but the blues was rooted in the here and now.
I hate to see the evening sun go down.
The music evolved into the 12-bar blues, turning sadness into stoicism and misfortune into humor.
The blues is definitely more than just a sadness, because basically a blues, especially if you deal with a 12-bar, it's set up like a joke. You know, you repeat the line twice, and then you got the punchline at the end. I got a man that treats me like a rat. I got a man that treats me like a rat. He gets me so worried I don't know where I'm at. It's a happy music. It truly is. It just that some of the subject matter of the blues sometimes had that sad feeling, but truly, it is not a sad music.
Well, the blues gonna take this, loping like a mule. Well, the blues gonna take this, loping like a mule.
In 1926, Race Records got into a new market and a new type of Southern solo artist, Blind Lemon Jefferson, a street singer from Texas. His high, lonesome voice and solitary guitar sounded like another world from the vaudeville women who had dominated blues recordings.
It was a different kind of blues. It's one-on-one. A person is just kind of hollering at the moon. You know, there's no ulterior motive for a cat to do what he does because he's expressing his or her soul to the universe.
Blind Lemon Jefferson may have sounded like a voice howling at the moon, but he was backed by a business plan. Paramount Records employed black producer J. Mayo Williams to run their Race Records division. In his catalog, Williams appealed to his customers, asking if they could recommend any new blues talent.
And by God, someone working in a record store in Dallas wrote to Paramount Records and said, there's this guy plays down by the tracks here who gets these huge crowds, and if we had a record of him, we could sell a bunch of them. And that was Blind Lemon Jefferson. And the record company thought he sounded terrible, but they gave it a try. And by God, it sold all over the country.
What if one can't favor ask of you? What if one can't favor ask of you?
He became a recording star, and his success transported him far away from singing on street corners in Texas.
It's a long, long lane, ain't got no end. It's a long, long lane, ain't got no end. It's a long, long lane, ain't got no end. It's a bad wind that never changed. He did all right for himself. To say he owned his own car, he had his own chauffeur to drive him around. He was a doozy. That's it. I don't know about ragged. Some people say he was mighty sophisticated. Some people said he had some of the wildest suits you ever seen. Have you ever heard a coughing sound? Have you ever heard a coughing sound?
The success of Blind Lemon Jefferson gave birth to a new style of the blues. As if the vagrant with the guitar heard by W.C. Handy at the railroad station had come back to life. But this time, he was selling a lot of records. All over the South, the songsters were auditioning. They were street musicians with a big repertoire of songs. But the record companies wanted just one thing.
And the reason these fellas got pressed so hard into the blues is because the recording companies found out that blues was big business. So all these, musicians who run around singing pop songs and ballads of the day end up writing a bunch of blueses.
The record company would simply go to the songsters, and they would go to the South, go to Atlanta. They would just say, everybody come who wants to sing for us. They'd get a hotel. Everyone would stay 4 or 5 people to a room. They would go and hear the songs. They would pick the blues and nothing else.
There was one region that supplied spectacular blues talent for the Southern market. The Mississippi Delta was a flat area formed by the Mississippi and Yazoo rivers. It was amazingly fertile soil for cotton, and it proved equally fertile for music. this was no ancient landscape of big plantations filled with former slaves.
There was virtually nobody in the Mississippi Delta until quite late because it was flooded. They had to build the levees on the Mississippi River. You needed the Army Corps of Engineers in order to get the modern deltas.
She's my baby, mine.
And what that meant was that the population that was there at the beginning of the 20th century when blues was happening was very, very young. In the Delta, everybody was ready to get into the new style, which was blues. And so it becomes this huge blues center, not because it's ancient, but for exactly the opposite reason.
I went away to Walana. I went away to Walana.
Will Dockery's farm was hacked out of the wilderness in the 1890s. Become one of the biggest plantations in the Delta.
When Mr. Will first got here, there were bears and panthers, and the whole place was covered in woods. And so he set about to clear it, and he needed help. And so that's how he got so many people to come here, is he realized that these thousands of acres that he wanted to clear needed lots of helpers.
By 1920, there were more than 2,000 workers living on Dockery. It was like a small town, a town which needed entertaining on a Saturday night.
But once you have this commissary situation and people standing out here in front of it being paid on Saturday afternoon, it was the perfect place for these blues singers to come.
The greatest entertainer based at Dockery was Charlie Patton, the father of the Delta Blues.
Patton sang at the top of his voice. He liked to clown, throw the guitar behind his head. He liked to talk to people in the audience. But he was a performer. He was an entertainer.
She trying to keep it here. My rider got something. She trying to keep it here. But I got something to find and do something with. He had a lot of the extremes, he had a lot of hard lives, and he had a lot of women. He played every blues man gets a little, but he had a lot. But I got something to find and something with. He had him a rough wife, and they lived a rough life, and that's what killed him in his 40s. But and that's what almost got him killed a few times before that, I'd wager.
The blues singers traveled the South and performed in isolated plantations. The talent scouts connected them to recording studios. The most important venue was a furniture store in Jasckson, Mississippi, owned by a white man, H.C. Spear.
Well, really, he's the godfather of Delta blues. He is the Delta blues and Mississippi blues what Sam Phillips was to rock and roll with the Sun label in the 1950s.
You kill a man, yes, I will. Just about
Gail Dean Wardlow tracked down H.C. Spear and interviewed him before his death.
This is H.C. Spear, Jasckson, Mississippi. By 1926, I became a talent scout throughout all the southern states.
Well, he would walk up, in other words, on the streets and listen to a musician play. He was looking for 4 original songs. Reason many bluesmen never got recorded is they didn't have enough original material.
Crying can't hit mama. Crying so low till her knee.
Spear told tales of drunken blues singers and bootleg liquor that fueled Saturday night parties.
People came to drink, and they came to dance, and they were drinking moonshine. And, you know, some of this moonshine was made through lead radiators, so, I mean, it had a high lead content. But there was always booze to be found at a party. H.C. Spears said, the bluesman, he said, he don't fit. He said, you got to have a drink before he can make a record, and he smells a little bit. But he says, they're great guitar players. He said the Delta blues was kind of like the meat barrel. It smells a little bit. And someone like Bessie Smith, the city singers, they had dialed it up and put perfume on their blues. Spear got a letter from Charlie Patton in the Delta, and basically Patton said, I think I'm as good as anyone that's been recorded, and I would like to audition for you.
Spear got Patton a record contract.
Patton was good. Patton was one of the best talents I ever had. And he was one of the best sellers, too, on record. Mm-hmm.
His records made him famous, and he passed on his tips to the next generation.
How I started to make records was plying 4 mules on the plantation. And man come through there picking a guitar called Charlie Patton. And I liked his sound. And so every night that I'd get off for work, I'd go over to his house and he'd learn me how to pick the guitar. So I got good with it.
For the musicians who started their lives on these plantations, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, B.B. King, and many more, the blues offered a way out.
Excuse me. These guys never picked cotton in their life. That's why they're playing the blues, you know, to get out of the cotton fields they were playing.
The black families working in these cotton fields were sharecroppers, and for many, it was a modernized form of slavery.
Hard time on everywhere you go. Times it harder than ever been before.
Mississippi was the poorest state in the Union. Segregation was total, and the white man's word was the rule of law. A white shopkeeper like H.C. Spear understood why this was fertile soil for the blues.
You take the Negro for over 100 years, he's been deprived of so many privileges. They could get into the fields and become more satisfied with themselves by singing, you understand. It was singing off something that's happened to them. White man would take them and keep them for a week or two and not pay them anything, or either maybe kill one or two now and then.
It isn't what we hear, it's what we don't hear. What we don't hear in the blues is the real reason for the blues, the segregation and the discrimination. The control was total.
Sing this song and I ain't gonna sing no more.
Well, to me, the blues is the expression where people couldn't express themselves. Those riffs and those songs came off of the expression of not being able to say to their slave master vocally that I don't like this.
Lord, there's 61 highway, it's a long road I know. What is the cause of we being on the highway 61? 129 women and children here, starving. Some of them are starving and suffering, but we who have the bite are dividing with them. She arrived from New York City.
Thousands of black people began to vote with their feet, leaving poverty in the South for jobs in the North. The numbers were boosted by the Wall Street crash in 1929 and the Depression that followed. It signaled hard times for the music industry. Sales of records slumped, and the blues recording sessions dried up.
Lordy, some folks sat down, Greyhound buses don't run.
Delta bluesmen like Son House and Skip James made records that were commercial flops.
I'm so tired of weeping, so tired of mourning, don't
Their music would lie buried like a time capsule. But in the 1960s, they would be rediscovered and acclaimed as masters of the Delta blues by a young white audience who adopted the blues as their own.
That don't settle my drunken spree. I'll never get drunk again.
The path that led these young white people to the blues began with a new kind of record scout driving south, the folklorist.
Be my woman, girl, I'll be your man. Be my woman.
The only white people so far involved in the blues have been record manufacturers looking for hits. But the folklorists were looking for music they wanted to preserve. John Lomax had grown up in Texas and had a long-standing love of folk music.
But his wife and his sister too.
In 1933, he and his son Alan received a grant from the Library of Congress to motor through the South, visiting big penitentiaries to make recordings.
My son and I conceived the idea this summer that the best way to get real Negro singing, Negro idiom, was to find the Negro who had the least contact with the whites.
People have written that my grandfather, for example, was obsessed with the prisons and that he wanted to capture something isolated, but he wanted to find the oldest material, which is a very important thing to do. It's like archaeology. It was very scientific.
Prisons in the South were huge farms, which were run for profit.
You see my Lord, I'm driving by.
I mean, I think you could almost call it an extension of slavery in the 20th century. And the men had to work from sun up to sundown, what they called from cane to caint, from when you can't see in the morning until you can't see at night, the whole of the day, in unbearable heat as well.
The music sung by black prisoners inspired an extraordinary passion in the young Alan Lomax. He would spend the rest of his life recording music created by people at the bottom of society.
I had heard all the symphonies there were and all the chamber music and the best jazz, and I said, this is the greatest music. There were 50 black men who were working under the whip and the gun, and they had the soul to make the most wonderful song I'd ever heard.
The most spectacular discovery the Lomaxes made in jail was a 45-year-old prisoner, Huddy Ledbetter, known as Leadbelly.
Irene, good night. Irene, good night.
He was a convicted murderer and had a fantastic repertory of blues and ballads.
Take this hammer, if he asks you, would I
He had a big penetrating voice. He was a dynamic presence, almost frightening to some people. He was, in one sense, a great performer, and you knew it the second you saw him, but another way, you thought, this guy is beyond performance.
My girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? Come on.
When Leadbelly got out of jail and met the media, it became clear how much American journalists enjoyed writing about bad black men. Life magazine published a profile, "Bad Nigger Makes Good Minstrel." He was called a murderous minstrel, a sweet singer of the swamplands, here to do a few tunes between homicides.
I'm going where the cold wind blows. Where's that, baby?
This narrative had been shaped by reporters and the like who wanted to see, number one, a murderer, who was out walking around, and a murderer who sang songs that people enjoyed, which was, it's priceless.
My girl, don't you lie to me. Tell me
In February 1935, John Lomax took Lead Belly to a mansion in Connecticut, where a newsreel crew staged and filmed a reconstruction of Lead Belly's journey from singing convict to grateful performer.
Lead Belly, what are you doing here?
Boss, I come here to be your man. I come here to work for you the rest of my life.
It is scripted in kind of cringing detail to show Lead Belly as a servile, compliant plantation Negro who John Lomax kind of shepherds out of confinement.
Thank you, sir, boss. Thank you, sir, boss. I'll drive you all over the United States. I'll tie your shoestrings for you. And you never have to tie your shoestrings as long as I work for you.
Later, John Lomax was embarrassed by this newsreel, while Lead Belly was angry because he didn't get paid.
Thank you, sir, boss. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Despite growing tension between them, Lead Belly performed with Lomax at Harvard University and literary conferences.
He got a new audience, and that was unexpected, and that was educated middle-class whites who were very liberal. He didn't really have an audience among blacks.
Lead Belly was never a success with black audiences, and white society saw him as wild-eyed and dangerous, an embodiment of his race. However, Lead Belly did find support in left-wing circles.
We do not preach the sure hope of socialism in the life of these young comrades of ours. We preach that, yes, but
As the blues entered white liberal society, the music could now be heard in the context of civil rights. The blues were getting political.
I want all the colored people to listen to me. Don't ever try to get no home in Washington, D.C., cause it's a bourgeois town. Ooh, it's a bourgeois town. I got a bourgeois blues, a choke on and blazing you.
The only support for blacks in the South in the 30s was the Communist Party. So there was a great symbiosis between the communists and this black. And in 1936, a meeting of the American Communist Party, they did officially recognize the blues as the voice of the proletarian black.
But proletarian black record buyers were dancing to a different beat. The blues records that dominated the Harlem hit parade of the 1930s were by the Count Basie Orchestra.
Don't the moon look lonesome shining through the trees? Don't the moon look lonesome shining through the trees? Don't your house look lonesome when your baby pack up to leave?
You see, to dance, you must have a beat. In every beat, you put your foot down on a beat, and that's what Basie does for you. You can dance to his music. It don't matter what he plays, any sound, and that's why da 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 da. Well, that's so pronounced you can't miss it.
You can't love me, baby, and treat me that way.
Count Basie's band combined the blues sound of Bessie Smith with the latest developments in swing. It was a very successful formula.
He took an 8-bar phrase, made it a 12-bar phrase. Now you got the blues. And he had 16 guys who can shout it. Oh, God, they were great.
In the evening, Mama, when the sun goes down.
The blues singers were getting more sophisticated. The new style of blues crooners, like Leroy Carr, were no longer shouting the blues.
We have electrical recording. Simple as that. You didn't need to shout. So these singers could be more intimate. And there's another innovation comes at the same time, radio. So an intimate voice singing softly in a radio late at night, irresistible.
Well, it's hard to tell which one will treat you the best when the sun goes down.
This melody was not lost on a young man in Mississippi.
Well, it's hard to tell and all your love's in vain. All your love's in vain.
In 1936, a 25-year-old walked into H.C. Spears' store in Jasckson, Mississippi. His name was Robert Johnson. He had a bunch of songs, and he wanted an audition to make some records.
Well, I felt lonesome, I was lonesome, and I could not help but cry. All my love's in vain.
Robert Johnson really used his ears, and he listened to everything that was going on around him, and he took in everything that was going on. All the popular musicians around him, he took their styles and he took them off for other instruments and arranged them for his instruments, you know.
He's the first person we have from the blues world who had heard all the blues records. And as a result, he's the first person who doesn't just play a style from his place. He's like already this compendium of the greatest blues styles of the 20s and early 30s, and he's putting it all together.
I woke up this morning, around for my shoes.
In his short lifetime, Robert Johnson recorded 29 songs. He remained almost totally unknown. But beginning in the 1960s, Johnson's songs would see him acclaimed as King of the Delta Blues Singers.
I think he brought the idea of writing them yourself and playing them yourself to a new peak. You know, where it became important that you were actually singing your own songs. Guitar playing is on the virtuoso scale. This is you're listening to an orchestra there. You're not listening to one guy. This is impossible.
In New York City, Robert Johnson had one very important fan. John Hammond was a record producer from a wealthy background who combined left-wing politics, man-about-town sophistication, with a very discerning ear. He discovered and encouraged Count Basie, Billie Holiday, and Bob Dylan. Hammond described Johnson as the greatest Negro blues singer who has cropped up in recent years in a communist magazine. He asked the magazine to sponsor a concert he was planning, which would showcase the rich heritage of black music.
I'm sure John had never bothered to join anything, but he didn't mind contributing to the Communist Party if they would help make it possible to have this concert.
Hammond sent scouts down south to locate Robert Johnson, but they returned with the news that Johnson had died in mysterious circumstances. Nevertheless, the show went on.
In December of 1938, John Hammond put on a concert here at Carnegie Hall, the most prestigious classical music venue in New York. He called it From Spirituals to Swing, and the idea was that he was taking swing music, which everyone knew as a pop music, and trying to show its depth, put it in context of spirituals, of blues, of African music, and suggest that this was serious art, that this was something people should take with the same seriousness as European classical music.
I was up this morning, our blues walking like a man.
Hammond began the show by playing 2 Robert Johnson records.
The blues, the low-down second tier. Yes.
Then, as a substitute, he brought on another blues singer, Big Bill Brunsey.
Way down yonder in New Orleans, looking for a girl that I hadn't never seen that said she got good jelly.
Brunsey was based in Chicago. He had released over 100 records under his own name. He wore sharp suits and played the latest musical styles. But because Hammond was in love with the idea that the blues came from a primitive countryside, he presented Brunsey as a simple farmhand.
Keep your man, you got to keep good jealous.
Hammond wrote, Big Bill Brunsey was prevailed upon to leave his Arkansas farm and mule and make his very first trek to the big city to appear before a predominantly white audience.
He was completely a Chicago musician, but his job in that concert was to represent the rural blues, and so they turned him into that.
Well,
and Big Bill Brunsey was no fool.
We'll get back with the blues of America. Next week, we're going to show the second half of this. Right now, we're getting ready to get to the second half of the show. We're going to get ready to get into the Stone Blues side. So here we go, folks. request, y'all. Special request. I had to get that in. Little Junior Walker and the All-Star. Special request on it.
Break it down. to work. She don't have to buy rescue. I give my woman everything that you need. That woman is my driver's wheel. I woke up early this morning and she said she'll be back soon. She told me early this morning. She said she will be back soon. She said I see you early Friday morning, baby. Baby, late Saturday afternoon.
blues child. Sing it from now on. I'm a woman. I can sing the blues. I'm a woman. I can change old to new. I'm a woman. When I'm down to the wire, I'm a woman. I'm a ball of fire. Well, I'm going down yonder behind the sun. Gonna do something for you. Ain't never been done. Gonna hold back the lightning with the palm of my hand. Shake hands with the devil. Make them crawl in the sand. I'm a woman. I can sing the blues. I'm a woman. I can change old to new. I'm a woman. When I'm down to the wire, I'm a woman. I'm a ball of fire.
Am I gonna make it? Some way, somehow. Well, maybe I'm not supposed to know. Maybe I'm supposed to cry. If nobody ever knows the way I feel, that's alright, that's okay. Cause I'm gonna make my world a better place. Gonna keep that smile all on my face. Yeah, I'm gonna teach myself how to understand. Gonna make myself a better man. Climbing out the window, climbing up the wall. Is anybody gonna save me? Or are they gonna let me fall? Well, I don't really wanna know. I'm gonna hold on the best I can. And if I fall down, I'm gonna get back up. And it'll be alright, it'll be okay. Cause I'm gonna make my world a better place. Gonna keep that smile on my face. Lord, I'm gonna teach myself how to understand. Gonna make myself a better man. How to understand. Gonna make myself a better man. Yeah, I'm gonna make my world a better place. Well, I'm gonna keep a smile all on my face. Yeah, I'm gonna teach myself how to understand. Gonna make myself a better man. Make my world. I'm gonna make my world. You know I'm gonna. Yeah, it's gonna be alright. Gonna make my. Well, now maybe I'm not supposed to know. Maybe I'm supposed to cry. And if nobody ever knows the way I feel, that's alright. That's okay. Cause I'm gonna make my world a better place. Gonna keep that all on my face. Gonna teach myself how to understand. Gonna make myself a better man. Whoa, yeah, a better man.
Ring-a-ling-a-ling is the sound I've been hearing all night.
knows just where she's going when she gets dressed up to leave. You get the best of her loving, she bring the rest back home to me. I don't know just how he does it, but I tell you the bottom line, he sure has a way with women. He got a way with mine. He got a way with mine. I worked so hard to make it, wish I only had more time. But the two-time game she ran on me just tears me up inside. I call her late at night, but he's already on the line. He sure has a way with women. He got a way with mine. Gonna try to find that man. Gonna find a true-hearted woman that'll love me for what I am. I think about her night and day and wonder how she spent her time. The man's got a way with women. He got away with mine. He got away with mine. destroyed the hearts of women all across the land. Drifted and destroyed the hearts of women all across the land. But he lives in the minds, I know, of every traveling man. I meet a gal every now and then who make me wanna live like other men. I meet a gal every now and then who make me wanna live like other men. But I know deep down inside it's time for me to saddle up old Drifter and ride.
since I began to crawl. But on the bad side, I've been down since I began to crawl. If it wasn't for bad luck, you don't have no luck at all. I've been on my own ever since I was 10. Bad luck and trouble has been my only friend. Born on the bad side, I've been down since I began to crawl. If it wasn't for bad luck, you don't have no luck at all.
Did this renowned mathematician buy his car at drive time using the smartest online tools?
Well, it's that time of day, y'all. I had a good time as usual, what I always do. You know, I played a lot of stuff in that hour. Tune back in next Saturday, 7 to 9. We'll do part 2 of Blues America, too. I played a little bit of the Chesapeake Blues Festival, Shamika Copeland, Kid Moe, Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Next Saturday, the Hill of Blues show will start again, 7 to 9. I had a good time. Y'all have a good Memorial Day weekend. And we'll try this again next week. Peace.